So welcome to this very special episode of Menopause Conversations. My name is Samantha King. I'm a workplace menopause consultant and executive performance coach, and I am delighted to have my lovely, most favourite ginger on as our guest today, little Miss Ginge Unhinged herself, Victoria Hardy. Hi Victoria, how are you?
Good, so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. You're such a busy lady and for good reason. So I'm going to start our episode a little bit differently today because I've got a box, not just any box. Look at this box. You can receive all sorts of boxes, can't you? But look at this box. Can you imagine receiving this box in the post, all about being empowered, fierce and connected in a beautiful little heart? And who doesn't love a bit of leopard print, right, Victoria? So let's open it up because there's something really super special in here. So if I can do it without dropping, da 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 da. Look at this beautiful box and gift. Can you see? This is from Victoria. This is your first book, isn't it?
It is, yeah, my
This is your first book. It says, "Hey, beautiful, it's time to crush the taboo." Honestly, I can't tell you what a beautiful book this is. Soulfully, it feels heavy and rich, but it's anything but heavy. It's light. It's light in the way that it approaches the topic of menopause, because it's all about journaling and about being your rules, your way. So Victoria, too much talking from me. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Who are you, Victoria Hardy, Ginge Unhinged?
Well, yeah, I'm also known as Ginge Unhinged. So on the old Instagram and TikTok. So I guess I am a women's health menopause advocate, content creator, and hoping to make people laugh and think all at the same time, whilst having some good old fun myself. And of course now, I've always been a writer, but I guess now it's weird to say I'm an author and a speaker too, which is exciting.
And I mean, you just totally undersell yourself there. I mean, your book is in bookshops, is it not?
It is in
bookshops, independent bookshops. I saw your book in is it in Waterstones, isn't it?
I snuck it into Waterstones.
Yes, I saw you sneak your book into Waterstones. And that is so wonderful because, and this is on our reading list for any companies that we work with. We put together a reading list of only the best books, the books that are really empowering for people, informative, and this is one of them. So please, 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 Victoria's got a brilliant offer, so hang around till the end because Victoria's got a great offer, so we're going to keep you here till then. But let's talk about this book. I mean, I'll be honest, Victoria, I haven't got the wherewithal to write many things, let alone a book. So how did this idea come about when we think about your beautiful book?
Yeah, so it actually started for me now, pushing about 2.5 years ago, when I started to formulate, I suppose, my own journal. Well, I guess it started further than that. I started to journal myself, which I always say was a game changer for me post surgical menopause breakdown. I guess that was a real therapeutic approach for me. And of course, those journaling elements then started to make their way onto social media, where I would make small posts and so on before I did all the dancing in the kitchen stuff. So I was just openly sharing thoughts about learning about how my mental health and this surgical menopause kind of married together. So it started with that power of journaling, and that was cathartic. And I kept everything that I did. And the more that I did that, the more I became sort of curious about, well, I can't be the only person. And I felt very much outside of, I call it the societal box of perimenopause and menopause. I was 33 when I entered surgically after a hysterectomy. So I was thrown in at the deep end, no knowledge, and kind of felt completely out on a limb. Like there was no one else out there feeling like me. But of course, we know that there is. And then as I became more curious and connected with people online, I realized there was premature ovarian insufficiency, and there was early menopause, and there was late menopause, and there was menopause through chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and trans menopause. So I became really curious. So I started to kind of pull together and write these things down. And I actually created a magazine in my workplace, pulling together some stories. That went insane and went sort of global, and the reaction was amazing. And I thought, I'm really onto something here of bringing the stories together, but also bringing that journaling element together. So I thought, right, I'm going to start creating it. I thought I'd do it in about 2 weeks. I had my kind of business strategy head on, never written a book before, only ever done communications, engagement, media, and thought, yeah, we'll knock it out. And it took a long time. It took nearly 2 years. And of course I illustrated it as well, which made the whole thing a whole lot longer.
Oh my gosh, whilst you're still talking, I mean, there are so many beautiful, beautiful images in here. I mean, Victoria's just so talented in the colouring and everything. I'm going to keep picking some out. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? When we sit down to think, I've got a story to tell, or I've got a message to give people, we don't really understand the whole writing process, do we? I mean, what did you learn about the writing process?
Well, oh my goodness, so much. So I learned, first of all, that for me personally, I broke the rules. I didn't set up a blog first. I didn't do anything at all that anybody said, this is what you should do to become an author. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do it, because I just couldn't do it that way. It was the little rebel in me was like, just do this from your heart. So it was always going to be that way for me. So I just, again, started to formulate those notes that I'd written. I suppose work on gaps and think, okay, where could we go with this section and what feels missing? And yeah, I just wrote and wrote and wrote, just let it all out. Obviously I researched as well, spoke to other women and people experiencing menopause. And then I slowly pulled it together. Obviously you then run it through an editor and realize, okay. So that was really a fun process, because they helped me kind of formulate it into a structure more. And that's where the rules came from, because I was like, I don't want chapters. I don't want, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about making your own rules. And so that's where the kind of the 12+1 rules come from. And then we went into design and illustrating. And I literally have gone through every single page with a fine-tooth comb and said the yes or no on every single page. So it's been to the cover design. So.
It's beautiful. I found a lovely picture which I feel really in tune with, the whole cultural thing. I'm half Sri Lankan, half Irish, so culturally I don't feel represented in terms of the menopause conversation. But what I love about what you're doing is it's so different. Tell us what's different to your book compared to everything else we might see in that small but growing section of women's health in bookshops, just like to say. What's different about your book to what we might traditionally see?
And there's so many great books out there, and I love almost every week I'm seeing something crop up that is a new type of menopause book. So I think the first thing that is different from mine is there's two things. One, I purposely chose not to have any doctors or statistics or medical jargon particularly in there. It's one of my taglines on the back, that the medical jargon was as dry as my vagina. I wanted that humour, which is definitely in other books, but because I just felt like information changes so quickly, and I wanted it to feel really relevant at whatever time somebody picks this up and at whatever age, because that was so important for me. So I knew that I wanted to write this for somebody like me who really wanted to just feel real in the depths of how difficult this can be, but feel super empowered. And then, of course, the journaling element. So there isn't another book out there that brings together memoir, stories, tips, and has that beautiful space where the reader can make it their own and either hold that and reflect on it years to come, or pass it down to the next generation to keep that conversation going. So that was for me really something tangible that somebody could write in and rip it out and burn and get stuck in to feel fierce.
Oh my God, yes. And I love it that you've got a great C.S. Lewis quote. Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when we look back everything is different? And then what comes straight after that is you to be able to write down your symptoms, and that is one of the problems, isn't it? We forget, we can't remember. It feels very real right now today, but in a week's time we'll go, well, I know I wasn't having a very good day last week, what was that all about? So actually you've created something that's not only beautiful, it's usable.
Yeah, and that's the joy of it, is that you've got space there that you can make completely your own, whether you journal just gratitude, or whether you're journaling, you know, entering perimenopause, thinking, oh, I feel like I might be, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to take those 3 months, or whether there's a HRT change, or of course whether you've had surgery and you're just needing that space to, you're entering that new world a little bit unsure of what's to come, and so you can make that space purposely your own, which is why it's very blank and free. But of course there's other activities, as I call them, and I always think activities eye roll. I can imagine the readers going, oh God, she's gonna ask me to do something. I absolutely do, and I challenge with questions, and so that you can write those true answers all the way throughout.
I love here. I don't know. It's on page 206. It just really made me laugh. Top tip: go nowhere without your phone, a sat nav, an in-car picnic, and some toilet roll.
Absolutely, and that is the story of when I forgot where my brother lived, and I had been there obviously numerous times, and I was sat in a country lane, completely beside myself, could not place the location of his house in my head, couldn't remember the village name. I had to phone my dad to remind, and I was like, what is going on with my brain? It was a real brain fog moment. Yeah. And just, yeah, I just completely forgotten where he lived.
I mean, there's not a week that goes by that people don't say to me, I left the house with real gusto this morning, felt a sense of winning, and then realised, and I might be walking somewhere and realised I should have been taking my car to the garage. You know,
yeah, that is me daily. Yeah. It doesn't matter how many reminders I set. Just
and isn't that really part of it, because it can feel so bloody miserable, and I can say that. I don't say that to keep people stuck in that place, but it is a continuum, and you will move through it. And I think what's helpful is to have that humour along the way, and it's great because there are funny, humorous stories in here, aren't there? I mean, how easy was it to get people to share their stories, Victoria?
yeah, it was so some people were like, oh yeah, I absolutely love this idea, and actually I've made some really amazing friendships off of just those interactions with people. And then other people did need, you know, pulling around slightly. You know, they were a little bit less kind of, I don't want my real name in there, or I don't, you know, please can you not talk about that. And I really wanted to be respectful for how those individuals wanted to tell their story, which is why, you know, one person's written a poem, another person has quite a small section, because I know that one day they'll write their own book for sure. So I was like, I'm not taking all your, like, give me just a taster, because somebody will be reading your story later on, and just really bring it from their voices. So it was a very two-way conversation in how those were written. We really did sit down, go through it all together, and it was back and forth until they were 100% happy with what was printed.
Yeah, no, I can feel there's such a lot of love and respect. If you go on Victoria's Instagram account, you just be laughing your head off most of the time, but you do really challenge things. I mean, I want to come and be in your kitchen. That's how I feel, because you make people feel good. But the reality is, we know it's not. The reality is not that, is it? On a day-to-day basis, it takes energy to put yourself out there for the benefit of others. So this, to me, appears like it's been really written from a place of, excuse me, authenticity and being really truthful. You're being really truthful with people. What's the benefit to being like that, Victoria? What's the benefit to being authentic and truthful to yourself and to others as much as you can about where you're at with your menopause? Why would that be?
I think the first one is to yourself, because it's extremely cathartic to own where you are right now, you know. And we alluded earlier about how difficult and dark menopause, in all of its ways that it shows up for us, can be, and it was very difficult and dark for me. You know, I was in a very a mentally dangerous place back in 2019, but I needed to make myself really connected to what was actually happening, and own that at that time in order to move forward and to make choices, to be curious and try new things, and work out what worked for me to heal and become better. It's still a ride. I still always say that, you know, I have good days and bad days. And it's the same with our menopause. And I think that the minute we can start to have that honest conversation with ourselves, it becomes easier to communicate that out. And there is an element of being bold to, you know, I get called brave all the time, which I find kind of crazy, but I guess it is. But I always think on the other side of that boldness or being brave is just another human that's just as beautifully human as you are, that has messed up, that has been in places that they haven't wanted to be, that wants to be in a, you know, living life to the full. And we have so much more connection than we realize. And that's the beautiful thing. And I think if we can just go there with the conversation, it just, you know, it's flourishing. And it's the menopause conversation particularly is growing because of that, because of people willing to share.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit like passing around a mirror, isn't it? And we're looking at ourselves in the mirror, and actually it can feel very uncomfortable to start off with. Yeah. I mean, you know, we often don't like what we see looking back because we've created a narrative around what we think that is. But actually, if the mirror is your book and people can see themselves reflected back through these lovely stories. Oh, listen to me, I sound like a poet. You know, that's what it does, isn't it? It does, and it creates a little tiny space for you to just be, to sit and grow and to go, okay, which is when you then get onto your vision board about, you know, who do you want to be going forward? So tell me, I mean, if I've got my bookmarkers ready, because, you know, it's a great book. I've tagged up 2 chapters, chapters 6 and 9. Chapter 6 is about loving your body, and chapter 9 is about your soulful needs. Because when I think about where the pull is for me, menopause for me mostly is in my head. It shows up symptomatically in my body, but for me, chapter 6 and 9, I mean, what if we had to say to people, what would be the key areas to go to? I mean, let's start with where you think people should start with this book. If they were on the cusp of thinking, I think I might like that book.
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And it's so hard because I just love it all. But I think the stories are so powerful because there's a real representation of lots of different types of menopause through different ages, how it shows up, whether you're able-bodied or less so, or experiencing mental health, or in your teens, and where culture comes to play, and gender too. So I think I was really purposeful with that, because I feel like I didn't feel like I had any, again, representation, or that I felt connected to anyone. And it's beautiful when you can read a story and go, oh God, that's just like me. Or, you know, I really resonate, obviously closely for me, with people in surgical menopause. So the stories are wonderful, and they're throughout the book, so you can kind of flip through. But I think as we get in, there's obviously areas that are looking at the mental health side, and mind is really important, but the body section and loving yourself, it's actually a relatively small space that I've written in.
But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I bring it up to the camera. I mean, it might be reverse, but, you know, I'm good enough. Oh my God. I mean, that alone as a sentence, if we said that in a way that we truly meant it, I think we might have a shift on the tectonic plates, quite honestly. Yeah. Every woman showed up every day saying, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Stop.
Yeah. Just leave it there.
Yeah,
because that's enough.
And it's so hard. It's so hard. I constantly have to, you know.
Why do you think it is so hard? I mean, you talk about it, but why do you think it's so hard not to then go, I'm good enough? Oh, but no, I'm not really, because I don't do X, Y, and Z. What's that? What do you think is going on for us?
Oh God, that's such a big question. I think there's elements of where we factor in history, in, you know, our position as women in 2023, and where that's come from the women behind us. It's also the feeling of, I don't know about you, but I have this feeling of I'm running out of time to be to be like who I want to be. Like there's this fire in my belly, and it's like, so when we're hit with something that's a big change in our lives, it kind of again shifts us back to oh God, things are things are changing, and is that time ticking away?
Yeah.
So it's there's, and then of course throw in the media and throw in what our bodies should look like from what they look like in the 90s to now what they look like now. Like there's just, the narrative changes so much, and that's where it links so beautifully in from 6 to 9. See what I did there? Is the soulful side, because that was the bit that was massively missing for me. I think when you get the mental side sorted out, whether you choose HRT, no HRT, and you have your medical advocacy in place and you're good there, and you're kind of learning to love your body, your nutrition is right, and you're moving and doing all of the stuff that we know is great, it's like, well, what now? And that moves on to, where do we see ourselves within? What do we need? What lights us up? Where do we find that real statement of I'm good enough and this is how I'm going to move forward?
I love it. I am paying attention, but I'm just looking at this amazing book in front of me. Sorry, it's just like looking down. I mean, I love the history bit.
I know, I love that page so much.
That is so great, because actually we're curious, aren't we? We don't, I get a sense that people don't want to just have stuff done to them. They want to know why the options are being presented in front of them. So to have that connection with the historical past is so important. But coming to connection, I mean, you talk about claiming back the connection to yourself.
Yeah. And that is that's I think the big key, almost that transitional part, because we'll all go through and experience the highs and the lows, and we plod along as we do in life. But unless we really kind of sit with ourselves for a bit and go, okay, what do I actually need? What do I actually need to let go of? Where can I see myself differently and not look back on past me, and just bring past me and, the learns from her, and where do I want to go now? That's the real powerful thing. And that's where I started to explore, which I share in the book, is things that, are that more spiritual side, or things that are a little bit woo, as some people would say, or, writing and burning things, and that curiousness of actually what is our connection to those women that lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago, that would maybe do these things and were seen as witches, or seen as kind of healers of their time, or again that taboo of the patriarchy. But is there something in that? And I got really curious around that. And I think feel like
it's like a love letter to yourself. You're inviting people to be curious about themselves, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think what I love about it is, like in Rule 4, you talk about get the medical stuff in order, so you give some really well-formed tips and advice, but you're sort of leaving it open to people. You're sort of guiding people. That's what you are. You're sort of like a spiritual guide, taking people on that journey, if you like. But I think I was talking to someone about this yesterday. I personally feel, I don't know what you think about this, Victoria, I feel like the whole menopause conversation has been reduced to just HRT.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think it is, I feel like it's quite a dangerous position to be, where it's just either you should take it or you can't take it. And it's like, well, what about in the middle? What about in the times where, we're still learning about HRT? Or what about for those that obviously can't take it for whatever reasons? What about those of us that can't get it? I had to fight for my HRT. I took HRT and didn't absorb it for 4 years. And that's where I was learning all of this stuff, thinking, well, I need to try something else. So I always say HRT is just a piece of our own jigsaw. And this menopause, whether it's lifelong like me, or a transitional for like perimenopause into menopause, we have this jigsaw, and it's just a piece, and it's about finding all of those other pieces that are going to make our overall well-being better and increase our quality of life. One thing is not the magic pill. It's got to be a collective of
I really agree. I mean, I've been perimenopausal for 15 years. It's like, that is a long time. That's a long time. It's not all been terrible, but a decade of it definitely was. I can't tell you how much I would have appreciated seeking comfort and consoling myself and rebuilding myself if I'd had your book. I find that quite emotional, actually, because I have literally just, as we've been talking, and I get a sense, because it can feel a bit like that. You put crossing your fingers. That's how I felt. It's like, bloody hell, I hope this is going to work, because I've tried everything else, or, you know, it's this or nothing. And then when I found out, for example, that I was progesterone sensitive, I was like, oh my God. So I can only take one type of progesterone, Utrogestan. At the same time, I was diagnosed with histamine intolerance. I can't take any pain relief. So on a daily basis, I have to sit with my pain, physically, psychologically. It is bloody hard at times. And actually, it's not that I think people are so strong, they don't realise how strong they are, because the narratives around them have made them feel possibly weaker or disempowered. But I think your book is a lovely opportunity for people to remind themselves there's more to them than they realise.
Yeah, and it's definitely written in that way. And you know, there's elements in there, like there's parts in there called the interval of events, for example. So as I was writing the book, I was also fighting the system against the HRT shortage. I was waiting for my implant. I had multiple letdowns of the system, and I write that very openly about that in the book. And sometimes it's a bit heartbreaking, and sometimes, you know,
where is that in the book, to put you on the spot?
So it's all throughout.
We'll get a sense of your journey throughout that.
As I was putting the book together, I was also experiencing that, which I'm very honest in saying at the beginning. So I have these little nuggets of, you know, where I am, but it's also so much to, you know, it's so powerful to realize when actually you do have that within you to push, to get that second opinion, you know, to go and find that other thing that's going to work. It's just allowing yourself. It's allowing yourself to do it, and not take no, and not accept medical gaslighting and all these things. And it can feel exhausting, of course. But you have to think we're here for a long time, like, you know. And then when you get those bits in place, and you're like, oh, now there's a bit of a reckoning, it opens up that capacity to all the other stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, and to have a good time. Because there's no point here being for a long time if it's bloody miserable, is there?
Exactly. And that's kind of, I guess, the journey that I've tried to take people on, to use that word.
It's lovely. And I do think you sort of like, you even talk about the work thing. So this is where we sort of come together. I love your badge of honour. Lay down that badge of honour. There's no need for it now. No need to get by, suffer, crack on. To just deal with how you feel. This badge worn by so many, pinned over silent months. Generations of fear, aching bodies, minds. Let it fall. It's had its time. May it rest there for a while. Changing shape, words disappear. No help, I'm fine. No HRT. All muster to words of new, a fresh badge worn with power for others to admire, acknowledgement, help, voices loud, now spelling out my rules.
Yes.
That's lovely. And then you do talk about work. So this is the interplay between what I do and what you do. How much? I know. Oh, another beautiful ginge. Two in one place. That's a bargain. So how, I mean, what, in your opinion, how relevant is work to people when they're navigating menopause? On page 284, you talk about work, you ask some great questions, actually. If you could say anything at work to make your life easier, what would you say? And what support groups are there in place? Do you think people even recognise that they should be available to have things in that?
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think we've still got a long way to go in the workplace. I think there's some amazing stuff happening. There's larger companies doing stuff, there's smaller companies doing things. But I think it's about, well, in anything in the work world, those almost working together and seeing what works, and share those best practices for sure. And you know, taking those lovely organic groups that are the women talking around the coffee machine, or you know, just having those quiet conversations together and saying, actually, we want to make this formal, or we want to grow this more, and how does that affect all of the different people in our workplace? So yeah, that's why I put that in there, is almost blurt that out, get it out of your system of, if you could say anything, what would it be? How could your workplace improve? Because then that starts to it gets it on paper for one, so it's out. And then of course the brain starts to strategize a bit and think, oh, maybe I could do this or try this.
Absolutely, because I'm always saying to people, anyone who knows me in the workplace, I always talk about the business of menopause, because actually businesses cannot function without people. And you've got some incredibly experienced people who you've invested in. Why would you consider for a minute the prospect of them going because they didn't get enough support? Can I tell you the venue that gets the best conversations for menopause?
Yes.
The toilet.
Yeah.
In every single building I ever go into, I spend most of my time in the toilet, because that's where the best conversations, as you're all coming out washing your hands, and women and people tend to talk to one another, and
they do.
And that's where people say, I mean, I went into a business this week and it just made my heart sing, because I'd been working there for a year, and I went in, people go, oh, hi, Amanda. I mean, my memory's so terrible, I don't always remember people's names, but I always remember people's faces. Brilliant, I'm feeling so much better, I'm getting myself fitter, or I'm reading this book, or I'm listening to that podcast. That is the power of conversation. That's the power of putting information out there, isn't it? You must be incredibly proud of yourself before you say something else.
I was just saying, I love that about the toilet. It's so true. Whether you're at work or in a nightclub or in a pub, it's always that thing that women come together and, I love each other. Oh yeah. Oh, but I see your patch there. Or, and it is that, because we feel safe within that environment, and it's sort of, I don't know, there's just something that opens up within that space, but it's then being able to take that and go, right, what do we now do that outside of that?
Yes. So come back to the question. I hope you're proud of yourself. Are you proud of yourself?
I am very proud of myself. And I say that genuinely.
Good.
Which my son hates that word. He says it's overused, genuinely. But it's really nice to be actually sit here and go, I'm not just going to say I am, or shy away. I am really, really proud that this book is on my shelf. The day it arrived in its draft form, I cried my eyes out. I was like, I've done it. Whatever happens now, I have something to hand to my children for them to read.
Published author in the house.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
And I'm sure your husband and your children are incredibly proud of you, because it takes effort, doesn't it? We think it's a nice idea, but you are you're doing it yourself, aren't you? And that's why it's so important that we do champion you and raise you up. And I love it. Says, I think you're ready to wear your kick-ass crown towards the end. But there's some little extras in here, isn't there? Tell us about the little extras section.
So the little extra section are, you've got some help pages in there as well. So places to go to with all of my wonderful contacts that people, there's so many people out there right now talking about this, but I feel like I'm very aware of that because I'm in that space on social media. Of course, actually, the majority of people aren't. The majority of people still don't actually know what menopause is, let alone, surgical menopause or premature ovarian insufficiency. So I really wanted to give a mix of places to go that I found helpful in, and built relationships through on Instagram, on TikTok, and on websites and so on. So that's in the back as well. And then you've got the back pages are all of those lovely bits that are, to brain dump in. And then there's one, I call it the ritual, which is where I ask the reader to really let go of some things, the things that we care way too much about. I won't swear on here, but in the book it's letting go of a few things. And these are the pages here that you write that, and the pages are beautifully perforated, so they tear out.
You can tear them out.
You tear them out, and then I'm asking you to burn them. And then you've got scream on a page. So in those times when you have the darkest of thoughts, or the rage is so it's like toxic in your mind, and those thoughts that you think, if the government,
if they could hear what I was thinking,
they'd probably lock me up. Get them down, rip it out. That's perforated. Rip it out, throw it away, burn it, rip it up, so no one can see it, but just get that out, because you know there's no place in
serves
within.
no purpose, does it? It's taking up, it's an unwanted guest, it needs to go. That is beautiful. And oh, that's so lovely too, so empowering. But I can feel for people, by the time they've been on this journey, it says it's in your hands now. Oh my God, so beautiful. And you've done all your own artwork.
Yeah, so I wasn't planning to. I always knew I wanted it a really funky design, because that's kind of how I am, and I wanted to write it in a really empathetic and real and honest way, like spoken word, so that it was just really relatable. So almost, you know, if you know me, you'll hear my voice in this for sure. But I wasn't going to illustrate it, and then my friend said to me, you need to do your illustrations. I used to do them as part of my own journaling.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. And I'm so glad I did, because actually all of the illustrations in here were done really mindfully by me. They were done in moments that I needed that mindful moment. And if you look very carefully within the illustrations, there are little hidden messages. So there is messages where you've got let me find one.
Oh yes, there's a bucket here, the confidence bucket, and I can see on the edge of it says don't hold back.
Yeah, and then you've got kind of this one of when we talk about physical symptoms of this gorgeous woman here, and on her shoulder I've just put, look how strong you are. And there's all these little, and kind of almost on her bikini, on her bra strap here is just love, but it looks like a squiggle. So there's all of those little mindful things that, you know, actually some people may not even notice are there, but I know they're there. And
if you take the time,
secret messages to the reader. Yeah.
Oh my God, right. Well, that is a reason, if not any other reason, to just go right through it. Forget where's Wally. He's so
I love drawing them. That was challenge, I think.
Amazing. And it is so beautiful. And I really liked how you involved the Instagram community. I can really remember when you were asking people about like the cover, and you know, you're so generous to take on board people's views and things. And I think that's what makes it so readable and beautiful. And I really look forward to getting stuck in. I'm going on holiday in October. You're coming with me.
Yeah.
Not literally, but you are coming with me. So I'm going to take you with me, because I love it. I love the way it's written, and because honestly, some books are the font or the text is very heavy, or it's very samey. But even like this is going to hold my attention, because there's lots of stuff going on. So I feel like I can dip in, dip out. I'm not going to read it all in one go, but that's not the point, is it? It's like,
no, it's definitely something to pick up when you need it. You can go to any section at any time. And actually, a lot of the feedback that I've had is some people have read it from start to finish and not been able to put it down, which is always wonderful to hear, especially when they say, oh, I normally ditch a book halfway through, and they were like, I could not stop reading cover to cover, and then they want to go back and then do all of the stuff that I'm asking, or they're revisiting stuff again, or they've already burnt all their pages, but now they're doing that themselves just with a bit of paper each month, you know. So it's kind of building those habits in, which is just really, really beautiful. It was really important for me to involve my community, because I felt like they'd supported me, I'd supported them. We're in it together, and their opinion really mattered. But it blows my mind that it's now in America and Australia and New Zealand and Norway.
World domination next. It's coming. It's coming. I mean, as I say, I'm a huge fan, and it's on my list, which is a very curated list. So I would say this is something to absolutely love. And Christmas is coming.
I know.
I've mentioned the sea bomb, but I've said it. But what I wanted to say before that is that actually you very generously have an offer.
I do, yes. So I really wanted to celebrate Women's Health Awareness Month in my own way, I guess, this year. And I'll be doing lots of different events throughout October and going and speaking places. But I was like, you know, actually, I really want to celebrate it along with World Menopause Day. And it was really important for me to reach people as well that may not be quite in that space where, you know, that they're able to get hold of this book. So I wanted to do an offer for the whole of the month of October, but I actually started it early. I started it a few days ago, until the 1st of November, where I reduced the price down both on my website and on Amazon, to £22.99. So yeah, I reduced it, and it's normally £28.99. So no promo codes needed, no faffing about trying to find what was the promo code. It's all done. And I just felt like I wanted to create that reach, especially within this month when people are going to be talking about it, hopefully in the workplaces,
Yes.
hopefully within their homes, and the media will, of course, have that little uprising of more things around menopause. So it might just trigger that thought of, oh, do I need something? And I wanted it to be as accessible as possible for people.
Exactly. And honestly, please think about gifting it to somebody else, because it ain't just a cardboard box, let me tell you. How it arrives, it's beautifully packaged, like tissue paper was on it. It's honestly absolutely stunning. The care and attention that's gone into it, someone will feel very, very special receiving that. So I mean, my goodness, I think some other companies could learn a thing or two from you, Victoria. So before we finish then, is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel you want to say about your book that would be helpful?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that I would say is this is really written for all ages, which is always kind of that difficult thing when people say, well, you know, is it for perimenopause? Is it for I purposely wrote it so that everybody would feel really inclusive, but also learn from each other's experiences. So I think this is the book that you can pick up whether you're not there yet, whether you're going, you know, whether you're in the thick of it, or whether you're you know, about to embark, as I like to say, because it's something that you can kind of read and get knowledge from, but then really get stuck in when the time is right for you. So yeah, Logan agrees. He's having a moan next to me. You know.
Oh, is he? I didn't hear.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and it's fun, you know.
And
like
it is fun. It's beautiful. It's so different to everything else that's out there, which I absolutely love. So tell us then, as we sort of bring it all to a close, and I'm going to ask for your contact details in a second. When you think about the wonderful journey, ups and downs, bumps in the road, blockages, and all the rest of it, what is your hope for people in the future when it comes to menopause? So when we look back over our shoulder 5 years from now, what is your hope that may have changed or happened?
Yeah, again, such a big question, but I think for me, I feel like menopause, I would, if I just said menopause needs to be part of the conversation, I think that's a little bit of a cop out, because I think, well, what does that look like? But for me, I would like to see a more open view around that menopause isn't just women of a certain age, that it can affect or indirectly affect everybody. So, you know, and it is, again, just that human, it's just a human part of us. So whether that is natural or whether it's been forced, you know, it's part of our human makeup. And we need to kind of sack off the embarrassment around it, really. More specifically, I would like to see more support around women that go through hysterectomies. That's my big, you know, if I could advocate and stand with my flag for kind of what I'm about, well, kind of loads of other people are doing loads of other things.
Yeah, cool.
To have that wraparound support of those experiencing a hysterectomy or forced menopause through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc., because there's a huge gap, and I would like to see that more holistic approach around that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I did a podcast recently about breast cancer, just how people fixate on treating the cancer in the breast and forget that all those treatments are radically destroying and damaging people's vaginas, vulvas. You know, it is not okay. We need to be taking things much more seriously. My own sister had really dramatic surgery for endometriosis, and she was, you know, surgical menopause overnight, no counselling, nothing. Went from being told take the contraceptive pill or get pregnant to suddenly everything. And so we need to do better, don't we? We need to do better, connecting the dots, preparing people, not 5 minutes before, but decades before, which is great, which is what Dan Debrint's work is doing, in those PHSE classes, so teaching people about that. But I think generally women's health, so it needs to be much more spoken about, doesn't it? It's not just about menopause.
And it needs to be that continuous line, not the, I was the same, saved my life with my surgery, amazing, but then I was left, and it's like, whoa, everything else I had to. So wouldn't it be nice to have that wraparound, that full disclosed conversation, so we're informed, and we're so much more powerful when we're knowledgeable. And that's when we can go and live our best lives, as we say, even though it's difficult, because we have that knowledge of what's around the corner, and that's super.
Because ultimately then we become fierce, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I like the idea of being fierce. I've always seen myself as just being quiet. Not anymore.
You can be quietly fierce, though. That's still dangerous.
Yeah, stealth.
Dangerous in a good way.
Dangerous in all the good ways. Yeah. Not scary danger, but
not scary dangerous.
Really good.
There's something so empowering about fierce.
So how can people be in touch with you? Because I know people are going to absolutely love you, because this will be on LinkedIn, it'll be on Instagram. How can people connect more with you, Victoria? Because why wouldn't they? I mean,
so I am on social media wise, I am on Instagram as ginge_unhinged. And then I'm Ginge Unhinged on TikTok as well. My DMs are always open on Instagram. So, we have two-way, lots of voice notes being exchanged and so on and so forth. I also have my website, gingeunhinged.com as well, which is more sort of formal. You can email me and get in contact if that's sort of more for formal.
You do talks though, don't you?
I do, yeah. So I do.
Any corporates watching? She does.
Yeah, so I do lots of talks around menopause and empowerment and how it shows up in the workplace and all of that good stuff, but just with a ginge twist on it,
Oh yeah, who doesn't love a bit of that? That's absolutely brilliant. Well, from me to you, Victoria, thank you so much for giving us your time, your wisdom, your insight, for actually creating something, birthing something that is so beautiful. And I'm going to go through with my pink. I'm going to keep it pink, actually, for my little tabs there. I'm going to go through and tab that up and really enjoy reading that. But for now, Victoria, thank you so much for your time.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.